Believe it or not, this is what inspired me to make this video on love and desire. The beast is enormous, with folds of mottled skin, sparse coarse hair, and a wide toothy maw. In both appearance and movement it resembles a walrus somewhat. It clambers towards you, dragging itself forward with its large front limbs, and occasionally summoning the strength to roll, lunge, or leap at you. Its name is the Covetous Demon, with covet meaning to strongly desire something that belongs to another. This is shown really well with the boss's signature move, Eat. If you stand in front of the boss, you risk being seized and tossed into its mouth, but crunches and grinds your body between its teeth, spitting you out once it's finished. When you emerge, your armor, weapons, and all your equipped items are gone. Well, not quite. Technically, they have been unequipped. Still, a cumbersome task for you to find a moment to pull up the menu and put them back on mid-fight. However, to covet can also mean to yearn. Once you defeat this boss and read its soul description, you realize that this demon was once merely a man whose deep affections were unrequited. He transformed into the covetous demon, which only made him lonelier than before. An inordinate desire for another, now replaced by the wish to fill the emptiness within him. The description further states, eating is an expression of desire. The enormity of my desire disgusts me. So how much would he have needed to eat? Rather, how much yearning resided in his heart to transform him into this? Perhaps it was entranced by some perversion of love. Perversion refers to a distortion or corruption of the original meaning or state of being. In this context, it implies that the love the covetous demon experiences is warped. Some psychoanalytic views on the term perversion of love describe it as a defensive or compensatory strategy arising from shame and guilt. So who did this individual love, albeit without their feelings being returned? That thing that ended up as a monstrous fiend. What was it to begin with? And why did it never leave the Queen? The Queen referenced here is also an enemy in Earthen Peak, Mytha, the fairest queen in the land, until something unhinged her. Was it the poison found deep within the earth, or the passion that consumed her heart?
This is such a romantical game. PS2 is about love.
And speaking of love, what do we love? Mum. Thanks to this video's sponsor, Raycon. Ah, Mum. Who are you talking to right Mum now? Is always on the go from early to late. Apparently I'm Mum in this. So treat her to Raycon's everyday earbuds this Mother's Day. At the very least, she deserves to drown out the world, listening to her tunes with crystal clear sound. Give your mother figure the perfect gift for wherever she goes, whether cleaning the house or hitting the gym. She can have premium audio everywhere. And if Mum isn't liking her Raycons, I'm not your mum. They offer a 30-day happiness guarantee return policy, no questions asked. In all seriousness, I really enjoy using Raycon's earbuds because I've always had issues finding the right size to fit my ears, but Raycon has a selection of optimized gel tips and an ergonomic design to provide a comfortable custom fit. I don't have to worry about them falling out, they're really secure. This is especially important when I'm doing something intensive with a lot of movement, like crafting. Their active noise cancellation feature is super effective and easy to use too. With just one simple tap, I can shut out all of the outside noise when I need to concentrate, and with another simple tap, it returns me to reality. To keep your earbuds safe and stylish, they offer a range of unique designs for their protective case covers, which makes them much easier to spot when I'm rushing to head out of the house. They also have wireless charging, so in a pinch I can get 90 minutes of battery in just 10 minutes of charging in the case. So if you're in the market for some new earbuds and you want to support the channel at the same time, you can go to buyraycon.com/chalice and get 20% off site-wide. Brought to you by Raycon. Thanks again. Now let's get back to the lore. A woman of power and unmatched beauty. It's understandable how the man who would later become the covetous demon became enamored with her. However, she did not return his feelings, because her heart was set on another. Love makes us monsters. The queen sought the king's affection, even poisoning herself to attain beauty, despite the monstrous consequences, all for the compelling madness known as love. The adjective used to describe the queen is baneful, an archaic word meaning destructive, poisonous, or fatal, all applicable here. She went to great lengths in the name of love, presumably using the poisonous liquid seen throughout Earthen Peak as a form of extreme beauty treatment to attract the king's attention. Let's face it, this isn't a novel idea for those familiar with the influence, standards, and industry, the real-world concept of beauty. False aesthetic ideals, measurements, proportions, smoother, younger, tighter, can always be thinner, look better.
You know, health and beauty and that sort of stuff. And I thought only human women were so petty.
What is truly devastating is the interpretation that the queen was of unparalleled beauty even before she began this regime. It sadly implies that she felt compelled to undertake such measures because the king did not reciprocate her feelings, leaving the queen resigned to a fate akin to that of the covetous demon, now also inhabiting the body of a monster, with love being the cause, catalyst, and motivator. It is also quite fitting that on New Game Plus, Mytha drops the covetous silver serpent ring, an item that intertwines both characters' desire and greed into one item. We will be monsters, alone in the world, but we will have each other. Another noteworthy characteristic of the Queen's design is that her head is severed, which she holds by the hair. The descriptions do not explain why this is the case, apart from the slightly ironic phrasing of unhinged. There is much similarity between Mytha and Medusa, two beautiful, punished, serpentine women. Perhaps this was her own doing, as her head remains the only part of her that is still human, and perhaps, in her eyes, the closest thing she has left that is objectively beautiful. By removing it from her scaly, snake-like body, she can somewhat mitigate the monstrous side effects. It is easy to imagine her detached body submerging her head in the poison for her vanity ritual in a much more dangerous, more green, Cleopatra milk bath adjacent manner. Or maybe she removed her head because she realized the poison was corrupting her beauty, holding it above and away from the poison.
That creature, she was human once, you know? Yeah. In fact, she was wed to the prince of that nearby castle. But her husband? He had feelings for another.
Despite being betrothed, perhaps in an arranged or political marriage, the soon-to-be king could not reciprocate Mytha's affections, for he was the victim of another condition: forbidden love. Far from Earthen Peak, two locations, Iron Keep and Lost Bastille, tell the tale of this couple. Although these two places could not seem more opposite, they share one common aspect: a bell tower. The bells symbolize forbidden love, the bell keepers their faithful guardians, ever ready to annihilate trespassers. They will stand watch forever and ever, these determined, if ill-fated, marionettes. Belfry Luna and Belfry Sol are home to these marionettes, who inform you that they are guardians of their respective bells, one for the prince and one for the princess.
In, O king, the bell of the princess. In, then, the bell of the prince.
The Prince of Alkan is presumably the one who wed Mytha, even though the Princess of Ven captured his heart. If this is confusing, I loathe to admit it, but it just follows the format of this meme, so please refer to it if you're confused. In their brief, fleeting moments together, the ill-fated couple created these puppets, with their love breathing life into them like peculiar surrogate children. Even after their separation, the dolls continued to faithfully sing of their master and mistress, transcending their doomed kingdoms and the time they once shared. The twin bells symbolize the bond between two lovers who could never be united. The bell keepers are their eternal guardians, for that is their love, that is their curse, fated to never be together, just like the sun and the moon. The bells will be rung forever, and they will toll cruelly for a matrimony that will never arrive. So who are this prince and princess? The prince's bell is housed in Belfry Sol, which is located in Iron Keep. And who else is in Iron Keep? The Old Iron King. Earthen Peak and Iron Keep are areas in succession and directly connected by elevator. Mytha also has creatures similar to the Forbidden Lover's marionettes, referred to as mannequins. These advanced puppets were brought to life by the baneful queen. Yet one can't help but wonder if she copied the technique after watching her fiancé create the marionettes with his lover. Perhaps she wanted to vie for her king's affections, or maybe he had reluctantly shown her how to make them, all whilst wishing he was back with his lover. Either way, this puppetry became a means for Mytha to vent her frustrations, for the queen was fickle, and so she tore off their faces. Heaven has no rage like love to hatred turned, nor hell a fury like a woman scorned. The Old Iron King is once again another figure whose current appearance begs the question, how did they end up like this? Much like his title suggests, the Old Iron King was famed for his iron empire. With the discovery of this iron-producing miracle, he was reborn as a powerful leader. Iron makes weapons, iron wins wars, iron makes allies. However, it appears that in his greed, the king possessed a great bounty of ore, but was incinerated by a creature that rose from the infernal depths of the earth. You never dig straight down. The Old Iron King's life was taken by a mass of iron that had been given a soul. Was this metal Goliath there from the beginning? Or was it a product of the king's conceit? This description is connected to the Smelter Demon, a being that emerged from the ground, whereby the king was faced with the consequences of his actions. Both he and his castle were engulfed by flames. His body was consumed by fire, and his soul claimed by the evil below. The monster you find in the molten lava now is all that remains of that proud monarch. Who knows if Mytha knew what had happened to her king? Perhaps that is why she no longer hears from him. A futile effort to catch the eye of a man who no longer exists. But who was the princess the king was forbidden to be with? Well, to figure this out, we have to take into consideration those two location names, Alken and Ven. Where would she logically go to find him? In the Crown of the Iron King DLC, there is an area called Brim Tower. Apparently, this region used to belong to the kingdom of Ven, before the Old Iron King turned it into his factory. Later, he moved to Iron Keep. But his old flame wouldn't necessarily know this. When Nadalia came to this land, the king she sought was no longer there. Dispirited, she forsook her own soul and clung to the heirlooms of the old king. Nadalia might have been this princess, which explains her heartbreak upon arriving at her lover's former residence, only to discover his throne empty and assume the worst. When you find Nadalia, she is seated, motionless, clutching his crown. Perhaps she couldn't bear this pain, so she renounced her flesh. It seems her soul was split into many pieces, entrusting her being into these ashen idols. Thus, destroying each one yields a fragment, until a total of 12 make up Nadalia's entire soul. And aptly, the only thing capable of destroying the idols is a wedge of metal, specifically iron forged in this land. Because of course, it would be the one thing that encapsulated her lover best. Iron. As a final point to support Nadalia's identity, when she gave up her body, She was transfigured as smoke. Some of the enemies in Broom Tower are suits of armour, once decorations, until the black fog ruling the tower seized control of them. This sounds familiar. However, instead of the armour being possessed by love, it is a dark grief that has overtaken them, limply hovering as they try their best to protect the tower. Even if Nadalia is not our princess, she clearly cared deeply for the king. Nowhere in the references to Nadalia is she referred to as a queen, yet the term bride is used. She would never become his queen now, but she could at least promise herself to him in her last moments. Bride of Ash is a title that symbolises both the pale dust that covers Broom Tower and, ironically, the physical state of the old Iron King as he perished in flames. They wished to be kings and queens. In the end, they were merely ghosts. Vendrick was a fair and just king, a leader who sought to protect his people and strengthen his kingdom. When Nashandra arrived in Drangleic, alone and beautiful, he welcomed her with open arms and heart. My dear Chandra, he called her. What reason would he have to doubt her? However, Nashandra was not like him. She was a child of dark, one of the many fragments from the old one of the abyss. Being one of the smallest pieces, Nashandra sensed her own fragility and yearned for what she lacked. She was not drawn to Vendrick for who he was, but for what he possessed, a powerful soul. However, she could not take it by force. She would abuse the greatest deceptive tool at her disposal: love. She whispered in his ear, telling him of the looming threat the giants across the sea posed. Drangleic would never be safe while they existed. Oh, how much she cared for the kingdom and her king. Having no reason not to trust his queen's counsel, Vendrick led his armies to war and supplied his bravest men with the best armour available to face the great giants. He spared no expense. He crossed the ocean, defeated them, pillaged and conquered, all to show his love, his gratitude to his queen. Yet Nashandra did not love him, truly. She was born of the dark with an insatiable lust for strength, a prisoner of desire. The war was won, but Nashandra not sated. She did not desire a husband. She only sought power and had only ever viewed Vendrick as a means to that end. He had given her everything, and she had only taken. In time, he would finally grasp that truth. The great king shut himself away and was soon reduced to a mere shell. Just what was it that he yearned to protect? Vendrick abandoned the throne and denied Nashandra what she coveted most: his soul. He locked himself away, becoming hollow in all meanings of that word. This was his regrettable last resort. He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster. And Nashandra? Some swear that upon hearing the news, the queen's face remained as still as her portrait. She did not mourn him, she did not pursue him. She merely waited. Another heir would come, another vessel. To her, Vendrick had never been a man, only a possession, a prize she had failed to claim. Perhaps in that endless solitude, Vendrick still thought of her. The statues he had carved in her likeness remained, taunting him. Still, whether he viewed them with resentment or some painful lingering affection for his wife, only he would know. How brave your heart must have been to never have turned cold, to never blame the pain and use it to hurt other souls. How brave your heart must be to watch the fire die and want to give it love time after time. In the north lay a snow-blanketed valley rich with ivory ore. There stood the magnificent city of frozen Eliam Lois. In this realm, a new fragment of dark manifested. Yet this child of dark differed from its sisters. It was neither consumed by loneliness and sorrow like Nadalia, nor driven by ambition for power like Nashandra.
How frightened I was. A frail thing, born from but a splinter of dark. I felt that I might simply disappear. I am, in fact, the incarnation of my father's fears.
Alsanna is an augur of fear, and like the others, she too sought nourishment from powerful monarchs. It was in frozen Eliam Lois that she was drawn to the Ivory King, a proud yet ever merciful man who was always first to swing his sword in times of need, be it for his homeland or his people. For the city harboured a curse. Deep underground lay the old chaos, giving birth to atrocities and monsters that terrorized the city's inhabitants. The Ivory King would not allow this ancient terror to torment his people. He constructed ramparts, enlisted soldiers, enchanted golems, and built a cathedral, all to contain and placate the chaos. Alsanna followed suit. She devoted herself to a ritual in hopes of appeasing the raging flame. And soon, she quietly found a place at the Ivory King's side. There's no explicit mention that the two developed a romantic relationship, nor were wed. Alsanna is not referred to as a queen either, although she is adorned with fine jewellery and something that might represent a crown. However, the relationship between the two appears much more nuanced and can be inferred through actions rather than words. This is especially evident when the Ivory King made his final sacrifice. Much like Vendrick, he too felt the degradation of his soul. He left without a word, leaving everything to Alsanna, and plunged into the old chaos alone. However, even though he didn't say anything, he bestowed Alsanna with a gift. He conferred this sword, inscribed with the name of the land, to her. This is an incredibly symbolic gesture. Not only is the sword formed of two curious blades, one dark and one ivory, intertwined with each other, but the name of the sword is Eliam Lois. The king left the city to Alsanna.
I sought him only to sustain myself, to smother my fears. Now, I realize that he may have known all along. I was born of fear, and my Lord provided comfort. And so, here I remain, heiress to my Lord's wishes, watching over chaos. Until the end of time.
Alsanna had not revealed her true identity to the king, presumably not out of malicious intentions, but ironically out of fear. But that is what she was, incarnate. Yet somehow at some point he realized who or what she was, but treated her no differently. Alsanna viewed the king as an anchor. He made up for what she lacked, providing her with protection, safety and security. Developed an understanding and trust with her that is demonstrated by him leaving the city in her care when he sacrificed himself to go and fight the chaos. Despite being born of darkness and having that innate desire to feed upon souls, Alsanna did not flee in search of another vessel, nor did she destroy herself out of grief. She remained, overseeing Eliam Lois, praying, waiting for her Lord to be liberated from chaos. There is no greater love than that which sacrifices willingly.